Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone and welcome to some shameless self-promotion. 10 years ago I wrote this book on the 1966 Saskatchewan-Roughriders, the first championship team in franchise history. 320 pages of virtually everything you could want to know about the Roughriders, not only of 1966 but from 1951 well into the 2000s. My goal today is to synthesize the contents of this book, 320 pages, into some cool factoids about the 1966 Roughriders, who defeated Ottawa 29-14 on November 26, 1966.
Only the official kickoff remains, and it was performed with gusto by Canada's #1 football devotee, Prime Minister Pearson. As Frank Knurr fires up his players, time is running out. And for the first time in 15 years, Ottawa and Regina are about to meet each other in a Grey Cup game.
Well, things have changed a bit since 1966. For example, back then the Grey Cup game was played on a Saturday afternoon. CBC kept talking about the fact that the Grey Cup telecast was in color. And the night before the game, on a Friday evening in Vancouver, a Grey Cup parade was held, an evening Grey Cup parade.
Premier Bennett stood shoulder to shoulder with the 150,000 spectators. It was a carnival under the lights in downtown Vancouver.
And during the parade, well, it turned into a riot. There had also been a riot during the 1963 Grey Cup parade, also held in Vancouver. The 66 Grey Cup riot, 443 people were arrested and 37 were treated in hospital for minor injuries and released. The Ottawa Roughriders were favored to win the 1966 Grey Cup by 7 points, and considering history, that may have been a conservative estimate. Over the Riders' previous 8 Grey Cup appearances, the Saskatchewan Roughriders that is, they had lost all 8 times by a combined score of 202-51. Here's a bit of an oddity. The odds of this happening are not very good. The Roughriders' first touchdown in the 66 Grey Cup was a short touchdown pass from Ron Lancaster to Jim Warden, and both of them had gone to tiny Wittenberg College. So the Riders opened their scoring, at least, with an all-Wittenberg touchdown pass. The Riders' second touchdown was on a 19-yard pass from Ron Lancaster to Alan Ford. The interesting thing about that play is that it looked like Ottawa defensive back Bob Obilovich was in position to knock down or even intercept the pass near the goal line. However, Obilovich ended up tipping the ball, and Al Ford caught the ball in the end zone as he was falling to the turf. Years later in the 1990s, late 1990s in fact, when Alan Ford was the Roughriders general manager, he hired Bob Obilovich to work for the Roughriders as their director of player personnel. The winning touchdown in the 1966 Grey Cup game was scored on the opening play of the fourth quarter when Ron Lancaster threw a 5-yard pass to Hugh Campbell in the end zone. Gluey Huey was covered by 3 defenders, or at least there were 3 defenders in the vicinity, but the pass was perfect, the pass route was perfect. Hugh Campbell caught the pass and the Riders went ahead 20-14. Jack Abensham then added the convert.
The convert by Abensham is good. Saskatchewan lead Ottawa 21-14.
The Roughriders' defense was amazing in the 66 Grey Cup game. It didn't look that way in the first half. Russ Jackson threw 2 long touchdown passes to Whit Tucker, and it looked like it might be a long day for the Rider defense, the defensive backfield in particular. But in the second half, the defense absolutely, completely shut down the Ottawa offense, which had been such a powerhouse in 1966 and was typically a powerhouse as long as Russ Jackson was behind center. Ottawa did not reach midfield for the entire second half of that football game. Technically, the 1966 Grey Cup game was never completed. It ended with 4 seconds remaining. Late in the game, Bo Scott, an Ottawa running back, ran wide to the right. He was tackled by Cliff Shaw for a 1-yard loss. At that point, the Rider fans went nuts and they swarmed onto the field. It was an absolute deluge of people, and the officials decided to call the game with 4 seconds remaining. The same thing had happened in 1963 when the Grey Cup was held in Vancouver. That game technically never went down to 0-0-0 on the clock, but it's a 29-14 victory for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and history was made that day.
For the 19,000 faithful fans who jam every Regina home game and make the city of 130,000 the biggest little football town in Canada, this game was a team's reply to all the devotion lavished on it by the community over the years. The payoff, Earl Grey's $50 dish on its way to the biggest civic celebration in years.
There were 2 excellent choices for 1966 Grey Cup MVP. If such a trophy or such an award had actually been presented. For some reason, for 4 years, including 1966, the CFL didn't formally present a Grey Cup MVP award. So George Reed rushed for 133 yards, including 101 in the second half, a 31-yard touchdown run being the most notable play. Ron Lancaster completed 10 of 20 passes for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. So there's your 2 big candidates for Grey Cup MVP, although a case could be made for linebacker Wayne Shaw, who was tremendous on defense. Anyhow, there was no Grey Cup MVP, so what happened? The members of the media took an informal poll, decided that Ron Lancaster was the Grey Cup MVP according to them, and he was presented with a small plaque. As I mentioned, the 1966 Grey Cup game was played on a Saturday. On a Sunday, the Rough Riders flew back to Regina and were met at the airport by nobody. Virtually nobody anyway. Fans were asked to go to the Regina Armory to meet the team, and according to reports, media reports from the day, some 6,000, 7,000, maybe even 8,000 people packed into the Armory. I talked to Hugh Campbell about it, and he had a fond memory of flying into Regina even though nobody was at the airport. Fans have been asked to hang up green and white Christmas lights on their houses, so as the team flew into Regina, all they could see, or one of the main things that they saw, green and white, green and white, green and white. And I imagine there was a lot of green and white Christmas lights right through the winter of 1966 turning 1967. When the Riders got to the Armory, of course, it was an absolute mob scene. There were so many people there. The team was late. Nothing went as scheduled. Nobody seemed to care. People just wanted to salute this Rough Rider team that had finally, after 56 years, won a championship. As beginning as the Regina Rugby Club in 1910, there had never been a victory. And nice touch when the Rough Riders did show up at the Armory that day. One of the dignitaries present was Saskatchewan's Lieutenant Governor Denny Hanbidge, and he had actually played on the first edition of the Rough Riders, then known as the Regina Rugby Club, in 1910. Thank you for watching this latest installment in our series of Rough Riders historical videos. Thanks as well for Don Beck and Clubhouse 23. They provide the backdrop that you are looking at right now, much more picturesque than I am. If you'd like, please feel free to subscribe to our Leader Post YouTube channel, and also if you click on the little bell insignia, you'll be notified as future videos become available. Thanks very much and have a great day.